if somebody listened to this podcast for a whole year, every episode, what type of transformation are they going to get? What are they going to receive from doing that? They're person A when they started. They listened to 100 of your episodes. Who are they as person B?
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Slow Smoke Business Show. I'm here with Big Nick Natali, podcast legend.
What's up?
Was that how you like to be introduced? Podcast legend.
Podcast legend, yeah.
Internet BFF. The great and powerful.
Amen. Yeah, all the above. Man, these are acclimates that I'm gonna get. I'm either gonna get them tattooed or
getting the T-shirt.
Yeah, or put them straight in my LinkedIn bio right there. Appreciate it, Jarrod. Happy to be here. Thank you.
We're gonna be having fun today. So we're gonna be grilling some pork chops with Nick. Nick is host of the aptly named Nick Natali Show. Who it's Italian, as he's told me. It's Italian, and. Big Nick, we're going to be doing some bone-in Duroc pork chops today. Duroc is a type of pork. You ever heard of a Duroc pork chop?
I have not. Lay it on me.
So I had never heard of them until the butcher told me about them, and now I am Dwayne Duroc Johnson because I love them. They are a much thicker cut, very. I don't know, it's just quality pork. They call it the other white meat. So we're going to season these up. I'm seasoning these up with my 4th week in a row pimping Meat Church until they become a sponsor, folks.
Come on now.
Hashtag not a sponsor. Meat Church, Texas Sugar.
Man, those look like some quality cuts there.
You got to season both sides. You can't do this one side season.
No, you got it. All the seasons. Season it up. 4 seasons. Staying at the 4 seasons here.
The 4 seasons. I'm the 4th. All right, let's put these bad boys on here.
How did you get into meats, Jarrod? That's what I want to know. What found your passion for meats?
Well, Nickolas. I'm going to call you Nickolas because I feel like that was somewhat condescending. Nickolas, I am a hefty gentleman. Okay, I like meat. I like business, and that was the hints. The thought for the podcast was, let's make a podcast where I wanted to grill out. See, I love grilling out. So I started a company way back when, and I never had a chance to grill out much because I was literally always working, and then when I wasn't working, I was being a dad or whatever. And I'm in a different phase of my career now, and I was like, I want to start grilling out more. And I also had this idea to have a podcast, and I thought, the one thing I don't want to do is create one of these like Harvard Business School podcast. No offense to, HBS or whatever, Harvard's Business School, but it's just not me. And I also didn't want to, create another one of these like business startup bro podcasts. We're crushing it, bro. That kind of crap. Like I wanted to have a unique spin, and I also wanted to have honest conversations. And it's hard to be a pretentious asshole when you are grilling out meat, and so that was the theory. Well, we're going to try to be pretentious assholes today. So
yeah, please, yeah. Let me hop on my soapbox. That's interesting you say that. I have a friend who, he does business far better than I do business. But one of the things that he does is he'll take his like clients or just people who he works with, and he'll take them on hikes, and it drops that wall that people carry. Ooh. Like maybe inside of an office setting or something like that. And I feel like that's similar to these meats. It's like you're going to speak differently. You're going to share more things about you. So it's just more, conversational and casual than it is like, let me put on this face because I have to be the conversational. I have to be the best business person in the room. When in reality, like, you're doing business with people, and like getting to know the people you're doing business with is, important.
Yeah, we used to have a tactic when I worked with Measure Learning that was really effective. And one of the things we would do is we would go and we would organize these big dinners with lots of current clients and prospective clients and partners and everything. We'd go and we'd have this dinner, and we'd pick a cool restaurant with some good food, and then we would open it up and we would say, "Hey, everybody, thanks for being here. I know you probably think you're getting ready to have a sales presentation, and you're not. And so there's one rule. We're going to pick up the tab for dinner, but there's one rule tonight, and that it is no work talk. Nobody's allowed to talk anything, no shop, no work, no anything, talk about anything but that. And what would happen is people would kind of go, huh, okay. And then 5 minutes in, they're like, well, somebody goes, well, they start talking about the safe subjects. What city are you in? Have you had any good food, sports teams, the weather? And then by the end of it, people are talking about their moms and their dreams and their hopes. And then by the end of it, they're begging you to talk about business because now they trust you or they get to know you personally. And it's just, people are so used to being sold from the moment an interaction begins that it's disarming when somebody will actually slow down and say, hey, let's get to know each other first. And then the business tends to flow so much more, honestly and openly and genuinely after that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's crazy. It's funny that happens because I was thinking about this the other day as well, is when I go to somebody to purchase something and they ask me questions to like understand my pain points, my problems, and I tell them and they go, hey, I just don't think we're going to be the best fit for you. We think somebody else is, or like this other organization or whatever it may be, or just be honest that like, we can't help you right now until these other things happen, instead of being like, I'm going to jump on this sale right now and close this and get your money real quick. It's crazy because then I'm like, oh, I'm going to refer these people. Like, these people are honest. Like, I can trust them to tell me the truth. It's almost like when you find a mechanic that's like, yeah, only your transmission is broken, not your transmission and your AC pump and your water pump. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I can come back to you when I have a serious problem and you'll be honest with me. It's a game changer.
Speaking of being honest, so this is an outdoor podcast, and we were joking about this right before we got started. For the first time ever, there is a giant freaking dragonfly sitting on the camera that I'm being filmed on right now, and I'm wondering if he's going to crawl across the lens in just a second. So we were talking, Nick, I started this show and I wanted to do something different, and one of the things I had to learn to do was, okay, first of all, I have to do a podcast outside because you can't grill inside. So that produced tons of challenges. Like, we had wind noise, and people ask me why the hell I look like I'm at air traffic control with these giant headphones or whatever. Like, this is the only ones that we could find that could isolate my voice and, get birds chirping and everything else out of there. And so that was kind of thing number one. And then we had to figure out, like, where do we not get hit with the sun? And where do we, because I had my laptop would melt down sometimes as I was doing all that. So once we figured out that, then we started figuring out how to do a cooking show, right? How do I cook food on a podcast? And I still don't think I have that all the way right, because sometimes I get the best episodes are when I can complete the food during the show and then eat it, and people can watch me burn my mouth and laugh and whatever. But we're right on the verge of Dragonfly Gate this time. So this is going to be breaking new ground for the show.
I love it. I'm happy you gave details on what's behind the scenes, because the episode that I listened to, I was fully expecting to just hear like the grill sizzling and flames bursting in the background the whole time. But it's like, yeah, you have great audio quality. When you open the grill, it's like satisfying too, because it's like, we're going to check on the meat and you hear just, and then you put it down. It's like, I feel like I'm experiencing this whole thing without like, going through, putting my ears through something that they can't recover from.
We haven't figured out how to get the taste over the airwaves yet.
That'll be next.
So if you're listening and you're like, this show seems to be getting a little weird, just cutting in, cutting out, we're having a bunch of audio issues, and we don't know if it's the platform we're on. It can't be podcast legend Nick Natali. Okay, it couldn't possibly be
either
him.
of us.
It might be. It couldn't be.
No, I think
it's not us. It's them. It's the pod. We're not going to throw the platform under the bus, but I think there's some fuckery going on. Okay, so we are grilling some pork chops. I think I have figured out. If you didn't catch it earlier, I'm getting screwed by some probes. I don't know what's going on there. I'm still waiting on that grill manufacturer to be a sponsor. I'm just gonna keep saying it. Their logo's in every damn show because it's right there. And I can't get the guy on the show. We need to get Ray Carnes from RecTech on this show to tell me his story and tell me just how terrible I am at grilling.
Yeah, please. That'd be every man's dream if he would just berate us over the grill. just let us know what we're doing wrong. Why hasn't he hit you back? What's the deal? Are you sending him like pictures of yourself with the pitch? You should send him with the meat. Pictures of the meat.
Picture. I just say, hey man, so like a bathroom selfie, like, hey bro, I want you on my podcast. Like, no, I haven't done that. I figure, so I don't even really know. I've had, maybe I should reach out, but I felt like, I don't know, maybe I haven't. I'm pretty sure I did reach out at one point. We've tried them probably 10 times, and you just,
Dang.
man, the guy, by the way, has legions of followers. Does a lot of cool stuff on the internet, grills out, looks like he lives the barbecue legend life, and I don't blame him for not wanting to come on some shitty backyard podcast.
Oh, don't say that. Take that back. As soon as he gets a whiff of those pork chops you're cooking up right now, hey, maybe that's another strategy. Instead of sending an email, just send him a box of like pre-cooked pork chops and be like, "This is what you're missing out on. If you want the real deal, sponsor this. Slow smoked."
It's a good thought there. It's not, that's a good thought. So I would love to know more about your show. There doesn't seem to be like any necessarily particular, you only have this type of guest or whatever. Like, you have a lot of interesting people on there. So how did that show come about, and what is sort of the aim of the Nick Natali show?
Shoot, I'll give you the streamlined version of it. So I went to college for software engineering, and then I ended up in loads of debt, about $60,000, and I was only there for 3 years. So really, probably should have been more, but I came out with $60K in debt. I moved into my car because I wanted to pay it off quickly. And while I was living in my car, I had these like interesting interactions where people would just come up to me and just want to talk and tell me their life stories, whether that was like warranted or not. Like, I don't think I was out there with the sign like, "Please come tell me," but I was cooking pasta on the tailgate, making some things. And I think that brought people around because I would give out food too, like if somebody wanted a plate of spaghetti, I'd hand it out. But then they'd also share their life story with me. And some of them were so interesting and some of them were absolutely crazy. And I was like, I don't even think a lot of this is real. Like, I had people telling me about how like aliens were contacting them. And I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. You telling the guy that lives in a car about this and not anyone else. Long story short is I was hearing these stories and I wanted other people to be able to listen in on them too. So I started a podcast, and I was doing it similar to the backyard style. I was doing it inside of my Suburban, 86 Suburban, and similar issues. Like, I was using my phone as a hotspot and it would overheat. And I just did about 65, 70 episodes. And then when I finally got a place, I moved inside, and season 1 was dedicated to like, our big 3 was entrepreneurs, entertainers, and experts. And now in season 2, we're kind of getting more granular of like, we want entrepreneurs, but more so entrepreneurs that either really, really know their stuff about something, or they have a wicked story of losing everything and failing big and then winning big right after, stuff like that. That's really exciting and fun to hear about, but also practical, because I want to know how people are balling out. I want to know that, like, what to avoid and what to do. So that's it in a nutshell. And who knows where it'll go moving forward, because I feel like I could smell the meat through my screen here, and I might be swayed.
So you're 2 seasons into this podcast?
2 seasons. The season 1 was 139 episodes, which
holy shit,
that's
a lot.
That was too much. And then season two, I think we were like 24, 25 episodes in, but each with their own layers of difficulty and similar things we're experiencing. It's just like, you learn every episode. I think that's what's so intriguing to me about the podcasting space, is like, I've never walked away from an episode and not learned something, either through the person I'm interviewing, or like, I should have done something differently, my follow-up questions, am I listening enough, knowing when to interject. All of those things is great. Have you had similar experiences with your podcast? Do you feel like you're learning a lot about yourself and other things as well?
I feel like the delay that we're experiencing here is making this a much more Oprah style interview, and I would much rather be like just bantering back and
Wait,
forth.
there's something under
And
my
I don't.
seat?
So Riverside FM needs to get their shit together. Oh yeah. So no, we have a like I said, an outdoor backyard podcast where we're grilling, and I'm learning something every week. And for me, I'm also, people take shots at the way I'm cooking and whatever, and like I don't really care, but
No way.
I'm also learning how to grill a lot better. And so a couple of episodes back, like I had a something called a picanha, and it's like a beef cut that's similar to a brisket, and I cooked it. I slow smoked. I never smoked anything like that before. I went to the butcher shop when I was getting ready for a show, and they were like, "You should try this. You've never." And I thought, well, this will be fun to sort of figure out on the show. Dude, that is one of my new favorite things to do. It's a flat piece of beef that you can season and do. I'm looking at my mouth's watering talking about it. You can do it all sorts of different ways. And it just came out so tender and so awesome. And I got to show people on a show me doing that for the first time and going, wow, most cooking shows you see is like Gordon Ramsay or somebody that really knows what the hell they're doing and is trying to teach you to do it. And I don't really know what I'm doing. Like I kind of do, but I think that's, what I hope is alluring about this show is that you're watching a dude just legitimately cooking out in his backyard. And sometimes he's good at it and sometimes he sucks at it.
Yeah, I do think that's like the interesting point. I think a lot of, and I think about this in terms of like, there was a time on YouTube where daily vlogs were a big thing, and I think there's like a residue of what was appealing about those or appealing about things like this. It's like when we watch other people grow as we follow them or listen to their podcasts week after week, we're like seeing them improve and advance. We almost view that as like milestones for ourselves too, like, oh, when that person did that thing, I was also learning about this in my life. And there's like a relationship that's formed there. So I feel like you mastering different types of things when it comes to the grill is almost builds a relationship in some way with your audience. I do. So that's my hot take on it, Jarrod. I don't know.
Wasn't a vlog a weird thing? Like I try to explain to my kid, my oldest daughter's 13 now. And when I try to explain the early internet to her, it doesn't make sense. Like, so we're going to get, so every day somebody would get on camera and they go, well, today, I was driving to the work and somebody, and like, it wouldn't make sense to today's refined Gen Z that everything is so carefully choreographed, or I'm literally getting up and I'm doing dances and things. I just wouldn't make sense to them. Which, by the way, when I told people that I was putting my show clips on TikTok, they were like, "This dude's dancing? Like what?" And I don't understand the Gen Z. I sound like an old grandpa now, but I don't understand the Gen Z. I have to like dance in order to tell. Like you see these cringe videos of people that are literally like sitting next to someone in a hospital bed and going, they're not going to make it. And they're doing all these little dances as they do it together. And it's like, is this the only way you know how to express yourself is to dance while you're grieving, you're, crying. And it's, I don't know, man, I like to think there was a long time where I was pretty much riding the crest of the technology wave, and I feel like I'm spilling over and kind of wiping out right now and getting killed.
Oh, man. Jeez. Nah, man, I'd love to hear your thoughts on AI then. You think AI is going to take the grilling out of the show? They're going to take over?
I think the last probably 5 or 6 years, you've had a couple of fads pop up in tech. The metaverse being the most notable, where you had people that had been right about trends before were saying this is the next thing, and you just had so many businesses and people, investors, all just fall in line and like, this is the next thing. And the metaverse never made sense to me. So, and it eventually sort of crashed and burned, and I still sort of floating around out there, but you can see Facebook sort of pivoting from that and everything. It's hard for something to catch on when the average person doesn't understand its value. And that's the difference with AI, because AI, when the average person thinks about artificial intelligence, literally everyone understands an application where that would be valuable,
Mm-hmm.
or at a minimum where that would be effective. Maybe not valuable, that's debatable. But I think artificial intelligence is the most significant internet technology wave of the last, probably 15 years. I think the social media revolution of like the 2005, 2007 era, when you started to see social media networks really become prevalent, that was a major moment in technology history, because that technology went on to topple governments, and do lots of really significant things. But artificial intelligence, I mean, everyone goes to the extreme where they talk about like the Skynet, and it's, we're going to be in fight with robots. And, I mean, there's certainly scenarios where you could see that, something that maybe in like a microcosm. But I think what's much more likely is we're just going to see lots of situations where we fundamentally change the way we think and do things. And so I'll give you an example. It used to be when I was growing up in school, it was a significant thing to know all the capitals of all 50 states in the United States. Like, capital of Rhode Island is Providence and whatever. Nobody puts any value on that kind of rote memorization anymore, because you're 1 second away from getting that answer on your phone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like artificial intelligence is going to kind of do the same thing. I had a marketing email that I needed to send out a couple of months ago, and I had writer's block, and I literally went to ChatGPT and described my company and who I was trying to send that email to, and it wrote me a fantastic marketing email. And I ended up editing it, ultimately I wrote the email, but it was a tool to get me out of writer's block, right? I don't like what they wrote, but I and edited it my way and had something. And I think that's what artificial intelligence is likely going to do. It's going to change the way people solve small problems like that. At least that'll be what it does first.
Yeah. I think you make a great point about it being accessible to the average consumer, because most people don't want to put on a VR headset in the metaverse just to have a meeting that they could have had over the phone. There's a lot of not a whole lot of application for them. But with like ChatGPT, there's immediate application, because exactly what you're saying, it's applicable to everybody. And I think there's already enough resemblance for people Googling things that there's also not as much of a barrier to entry where people are intimidated by it. They kind of view the prompts as like, oh, it's just like another search bar that I've been using for the past 10 years, so I can jump into it. The thing that I do think is interesting that we'll have to see how it plays out is I've seen a lot of different takes on whether it's going to create new jobs or steal more jobs or balance each other out. But the conclusion that I've made just from seeing and hearing all these different opinions is that soft skills and social skills are going to be way more valued over time, because that's the one thing that AI will never be able to replicate, is building relationships and having human interaction. So the person that was previously writing code that we thought was like ahead of the curve, now they can be replaced because AI can write the code. But the person that was managing those people writing the code might still have a job, because they can still make relationships with other people.
That's a good point. I think, when you say soft skills, that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. The way I think about it is, if you really want to thrive in the world 15, 20 years from now, when AI really has kind of fundamentally changed the economy, you have to think of things you have to understand value creation and where value comes from. And so an example of that is, so one of the companies that we're running now, Tough Dog Coatings, does a garage floor. Like, you could see those cool like flake garage floors that look like something out of a magazine or whatever. So we do that, right? We source those products from a distributor. We make sure we know exactly how they're made, and we can find people that need them. AI is not going to do that. AI is not going to see, there are people in this world that have dirty garage floors and hate them, and there's this product over here, and I'm going to go piece all of that stuff together. AI can do like linear decision making right now, but it's not going to identify where there's an opportunity for people. People will be happy to give you money to solve this problem for them. We're nowhere near somebody inventing something that's creating those things. If we do get to that point, my goodness, and maybe, but at a minimum, the first wave of that will still be maybe just identifying opportunities like that, not actually going and executing on them. And so, I'm trying to arm my kids as they get ready for the next generation to understand like where value comes from. And when I say value, I mean like how do you generate capital in ethical, sustainable ways? And those things they're going to alter as technology continues to change, but that's never really going to go away.
Yeah, I agree. If you can provide enough value, somebody will end up giving you money for it. That's for sure. It is a very interesting time to be a part of all of this, though.
Speaking of providing value, let's check the chops, baby.
Let's go. What are they looking like?
See how we're doing. I no longer trust these probes. What do you think? I'm gonna give you a little. What do you think about that? That's on the grill cam. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give you a shot from the main cam. Look at that bad boy.
Oh.
They do look. People say that about me sometimes.
Yeah, that's a compliment. They talk about your front ear back.
That is juicy.
You don't have to answer that on air.
It could be either, baby. Oh, pork chop fumble. We're good. I'm retiring the probes. They're getting me They're getting me into trouble.
Nice.
Let's see what
backup probes
here. So we want to take these things. Oh yeah, man, ThermoPro. So what did I say earlier? It's 145, right? So we still got some time. So I'm gonna glaze these bad boys with a little barbecue sauce. Why? Because I'm feeling like it, baby. Sometimes you just do it because you feel like it. Here comes the haters. You don't do it like that. You don't.
Who's saying that?
You don't just pour it.
You could pour it, Jared. This is your grill. This is your show.
It's the haters.
The haters, man.
They hate us because they ain't us, is what people say.
They hate us because they ain't us. That's right. They are anus.
I'm gonna buzz it. They are hating your anus. Look at that. This is gonna caramelize nicely.
The brush. Yeah, let me get some like ESPN narrative for you. We got Jared with the brush, giving a nice even glaze across all chops.
Glazing the chops. Yes. You could be a sportscaster. Have you ever thought about doing that?
I've imitated Mike Breen. Bang! Bang! His classics.
So tell me, how long ago did you live in that Suburban?
Ooh, good question. I started living in it in 2017, and I moved out toward the end of 2020. So I almost did about three full years in it.
Wow.
And when I lived in it, my best friend at the time, he was going to get stationed somewhere in the military, but he had a year in between when they were going to deploy him. And I was like, hey, man, I can get you a job where I'm working. I was working for the Department of Defense. I got him a job, and I ended up convincing him to live in the Suburban with me. So there was two of us living in the Suburban. There was two beds.
Oh, my God.
Mine was like 6 feet. I'm 6'1", and it was like 6'1". Like, that's all I had. Like, that was the full bed. And then there was another bed that was like a couch that you take the top off and put it in the middle and make a bigger bed. And we both lived in it. He was in it for about a year. I was in it for the full 3. But we were good influences and bad influences on each other at the same time, in the sense of I was obsessed with paying off my debt, like to the point where it was probably I could probably say it's unhealthy. Yeah. Like I was becoming malnourished because I wouldn't eat. Like I didn't want to spend anything that I didn't need to. Like it was like I would work like 80-hour weeks, just bang out overtime, not eat, 10% tithe, 88% student loan, 2% live off of, and like 1% of that was gas. So we had this like running joke that we would say to each other is like, what's for dinner? And we'd be like, we're eating sleep. So instead of eating, we would just try to go to sleep early and not eat anything. It's bad. My eyes were sunken. I lost like 30 pounds. It's terrible.
Wow.
It's awesome though. It's fun.
Gee whiz. But you got out of debt, obviously.
It did. So that I think that was worth it. The result was worth it in the long run. I do feel freer.
Have you ever reached out to the Dave Ramsey show and like I mean, that guy, you were like a, if he was to create like a monster, this guy preaches, and people are like, I don't want to get the small latte to get out of debt. I don't want to buy clothes from Walmart. I don't, you know what I mean? And and you're over here going, you literally were skipping meals.
Dude, skipping meals, skipping sleep. Yeah, it was gnarly. And I worked for the government, and there was a time where I underwent a government investigation, and maybe this is why Dave won't hit me back. It's too spicy. They like thought I was a bum stealing from the government. That was like, quote unquote, they called me in and said that. They were like, yeah, we think you're stealing and you like live in your car and you're traveling around. I'm like, you see me coming to work every day. Well, how am I traveling around? To be fair, the amount of work that I was doing was uncanny for the culture that was built for the department I was in. However, I wasn't stealing. Obviously, I was doing good work, and they like audited everything I had ever done, like checked every email, checked every text message, checked all my phone logs, checked all my like work Slack messages, and like my time cards when I arrived to work, when I was leaving, like had people watching me kind of in a sense of like keeping an eye on me. They didn't find anything. They actually found out I was doing a better job than they even thought, which was kind of good in my sake, but I did get in trouble, and they're like, you can't work any overtime and you're not allowed to do anything else.
Wow.
But it was stressful. It was a very stressful, like, probably lasted about a month, where they were just hounding me every day, like calling me in to ask me questions, and I was just trying not to say the wrong answers.
I think that's you said that's a cultural thing. I think that's a good way to frame that, because it's like, here you are doing the work of probably 3 employees, and how are you rewarded, right? You're rewarded by harassment and non-belief, which I think is, God bless the government, right? I mean, it's just the culture there is one of self-preservation, not of like, oh man, let's find our aces, and what do you need to be more successful, man? Hey man, I see you working so hard. What can we do to make your job easier, or what other problems can we have you solve? Or like, that's what a winning organization would do. Find an ace and see how you can build them up and get them, support them. And the government's like, they see somebody like you doing that, and they're like, wait a minute now. Like, I can't have you doing all that, because what I'm going home. I'm going home at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're dead on, Jarrod. And I think something that I left the DoD kind of feeling bad in one sense, that from what I know, I think the Department of Defense was once that. Like, they were getting the top talent, the cutting edge people, the people that were innovating, and that was exciting because it feels like you're pushing America along. And somewhere over time, like, the bureaucracy flew in. Every decision has to go through 10 or 15 people. And obviously they can't compete with salaries, and they're not doing cool enough, like, innovative work to want top talent to come in. And I think that's such a bummer, because I think having top talent in the Department of Defense, or like these government agencies where they actually do have like the capital resources to do great things, they don't, or they can't, or they don't want to. I think that's the part that bothered me most, is like, you have the ability to make crazy, like, fantastic change and the resources to innovate, but you choose not to. And that was frustrating to me.
What's the largest spending category for the government is defense. And so you would hope, right, that they're trying to get the best and the brightest in there. And that's certainly not saying anything about our military. I would like to interrupt this program to just say that Gen Z, we were talking about Gen Z a second ago, and as we've said, I'm an outdoor podcast, and live right now I can see from my backyard 2 Gen Z young ladies actively filming a TikTok. And
I heard you earlier.
Yep, this is going on with the arms and hey! Oh, they saw me.
Nice.
I'm waving. Yeah, they've stopped the TikTok. Okay, well, that's a shame. We'll see. I can't.
Yeah, bring them in.
I'm not. I don't. They're quite a ways away, and I think they're thoroughly free. Now they're back to dancing now. So it's I'm learning now by watching these kids, like, how many efforts, it's a ways over there, and I'm learning how many takes it takes to get these things right. I mean, they've done this like 15 times.
Hey, it's quality. Quality talks. I'll do it as many times as it takes. How hard can you hit the You know, whoa, you gotta really. It's about the angles, you know, how tight you can keep it.
It's about creating quality talks, quality content. My kids taught me the Grizzy the other day. I was Grizzying. I was a Grizzying SOB. Okay, I was Grizzying everywhere. Grizzying in the grocery store. Grizzying taking them to bed.
Is it the gritty? Is the gritty?
The gritty. The gritty. I think I do. Yeah, the glizzy. I thought it was the grizzy. It's the gritty.
I think it's the gritty, but you can do it. I'd love to see it. You can't just toss that one out there and not hit the gritty live right now.
Hold on, we got.
Hey, let's go. Come on.
So they told me it's arms out. It's arms out, and then it's kind of you jump with the, you know, something.
Yeah.
I'm in. Admittedly, I'm not in gritty. I'm not in gritty shape right now. My dog is actually sitting at my feet, and it thinks I'm having a stroke right now from what I just did. But
I think your dog knows what's up. He's seen you.
This episode is way the hell off the rails, by the way.
This isn't what it's usually like. I feel like this isn't standard. You don't.
No,
gritty with all your guests?
we're not. We don't gritty. We don't call it the grizzy. I don't have children in the backyard hitting TikToks. I mean, we got to have Nick back on here when we have our shit together.
Dragonflies.
Nick, what is I need advice. Let's look at the dragonfly. It's still sitting back there, by the way. It's ready to pounce. I need advice. I need Nick.
Yeah, hit me.
Nick podcast advice.
I'd love to.
I'm out here cooking. Mm-hmm. I'm out here trying to be the podcast of the people. Mm-hmm. How do we get more people listening to the Slow Smoke Business Show? What do we do? How do we get the word out?
I mean, I think it's more about we got to answer a couple questions first. The first question is like, if somebody listened to this podcast for a whole year, every episode, what type of transformation are they going to get? Mm-hmm. What are they going to receive from doing that? They're person A when they started. They listened to 100 of your episodes. Who are they as person B?
Weight gain is the first thing, right?
There you go.
Plus gritty techniques, gritty, and
the gritty.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, I hope this show inspires people to have candid conversations about things that can make you better in life, and it doesn't always have to be in a super intimidating environment or around people with super impressive resumes or degrees. I like to think that you can learn something from anybody, and I like to have people on this show and then find out what I can learn from them.
I love it. And then who's the primary target that you're hitting? I mean, I could take a guess, but I want to hear from you. Who do you want the message to fall on? What are yours?
I did a lot of work with this at the beginning, and I really hope that the market I'm reaching is people that obviously the entrepreneur sect for sure, but like people that want to do something great or make something out of themselves, and maybe they didn't go to the best school, maybe they didn't go to an Ivy League, maybe they didn't even go to college, right? But they've got drive, and they know that you don't necessarily have to get an education, but you can never stop learning, right? And that they want to grow and be a better person and learn and think about things deeply. Those are my people, man. The people that are trying to do something great, but maybe didn't come from a high pedigree, because that's certainly me. Like I really wanted to build something great. I built a tech company that is used all over the world, and I'm very proud of that. But I certainly didn't go to an Ivy League school, and I certainly didn't, come from a community where people did that all the time. And that's who I'm trying to reach. I hope people see my show and say, well, if that idiot can do it, why can't I do it?
Wow. Yeah. I love that too. I would give that person a name in your head, that avatar, and then make every episode for that person. Like have that be like them in mind. Like a good example is one of my friends. He has a podcast, or he used to have a podcast that was in line with, it was for people that had a 9-to-5 that wanted to make an exit to start a new business.
Ooh.
And he was like, his like avatar's name was Adam. And so he was like, this is for Adam, and Adam is only able to listen on his commutes to and from work. So I have to make these episodes shorter. And this is like the pivotal information he needs to be able to make that jump like over the 6 months. So in the next 6 months, that's when he wants to do it. So each episode was dedicated to that particular person, which I think is helpful because, you know, the episode content or the episode ideas don't get swayed, and it makes it easier to make decisions. And I'll also say something, since you asked about growth earlier. I think what I'm starting to realize is, I think a lot of times, and this would be something good to check your analytics on, is most shows don't entirely have a growth or growing problem. Like, they don't always have a problem getting eyes on them. They have a problem retaining the listeners that they do get. So essentially, like, converting a listener that is interested in your podcast and they listen to one and then they don't subscribe and then they never listen to you again, versus getting them to subscribe and then they listen to the next 8. And usually this happens, they make a decision in like the first 90 seconds of your podcast. So in the first 90 seconds, they're either going to choose to leave and never come back, or stay and listen to the majority of your podcast and then realize, like, oh, Jarrod's awesome, I'm going to stick around. So making the introduction have like a really captivating emotional hook that's going to be like, hey, you know, if you're someone that's, you dropped out of college and you're looking for your next big business idea, or like you want to like hear from the top rated people in a casual way, like, this is that podcast to get you to whatever that transformation we talked about earlier is, so they stay. That's my hot takes, Jarrod, off the top of my head. I hope that's somewhat insightful.
I love it. What's funny about this is this was just one big ruse for me to get podcast advice, I guess, right? I have I think I'm learning more about who the audience is, but I love the way that you frame that, right? And I you know, all good podcasts build a community, and that's what I'm sort of working on now. Is like, how do I connect the people that are listening into kind of a group, and trying to do that with social media and stuff as well. Before we get too far though, we got to get another pork chop check.
Ooh,
Chop check.
Chop check.
Okay, starting to caramelize on the top,
check.
Right? We'll
Those are looking fine.
One more time. Whoa,
wow.
Shit.
Another fumble. That's two fumbles on the day.
Another fumble. It's not.
You're not padding. You're padding your stats.
Like,
I guess in the wrong one.
I'm like half of the NFL quarterbacks.
Hey yo.
All right. I'm like every University of Florida quarterback for the last 10 years, except for Anthony Richardson.
Dang.
Okay.
Tell him.
Let's hit him with a little. Don't pour it. Don't
pour it. This is your signature move.
This has become my new. Actually, you know, so if I'm ever going to come out with merch, probably one of the first things I'm ever going to do is hit them with white barbecue sauce. You ever have white barbecue before?
No, never. Tell me what that's all about. White barbecue sauce.
White barbecue is this delicious concoction that you usually drizzle over poultry, right? It's mayonnaise and sugar and cider vinegar, and it's like this tangy kind of sweet thing. It's hard to describe, but when you have it, you go, oh, that is the way that is supposed to be done. It's in Alabama, kind of an original thing, originated here, really indicative. You got, you know, Texas has got brisket, the Carolinas has got, you know, they've got pulled pork, and Memphis has got Memphis-style ribs, and all those things. And, you know, Bama's got chicken and turkey, man, with the white sauce. That's their style.
Yeah. Wow.
I think we're almost done. Let me get a little temp check. So, do you ever cook outside? Do you ever like to grill out?
I would like to. I don't have access to a grill. I do have a friend that grills every Wednesday, and I do go to his place to get my grill on, but I can't say I'm the one popping open the hood of the grill, you know?
Well, don't be afraid. If there's another thing that people can learn from this podcast is, again, any idiot can do this. We're real close on a couple of these, so probably got another minute.
I heard you're supposed to touch your palm. Is that true, Jarrod? You're supposed to be like, if I want my steak, I want it to feel like I'm touching.
That is a technique, and I forget. It's like, you know, the more tender the steak is, the rarer it is. And so if you touch a raw piece of beef, it's very kind of spongy and moves a lot. And if you get like a Donald Trump well done, which he orders a steak well done, I think that's very humorous, right? If you get a well done steak, it's tough, right? And you know,
yeah.
You hit it. And so there's parts of your hand that you can touch and I forget what they are, but the more tender they are, the more, I think it's like rare is sort of in the crook of your hand, like between your thumb and your index finger. And if the meat feels like that, it's very, very rare. And then if you get kind of to the bottom of your palm, that's when it starts to get, well done or closer to well done because it's tougher. That's a cute little way to do that. I just like a thermometer, right? And they say, hey, Google, what is the temperature for medium well? And it says, that is such and such. And you go, yep. And you just measure it, right? Yeah. Oh, hey, listen, one way to not screw something up, sous vide, right? Have you ever tried to sous vide something before? Like that is the hotness. You put it in a bag, right? Seal it up in a bag. It's like a steak. And it goes in a water bath, and you have one of these sous vide sticks that heats the water up. If you sous vide something and then throw it on the grill at the end just to kind of sear it and give it a little gritty on the outside, right? Man, you talk about making a good steak. Like it's just tender. You can cook it exactly. If you want it 134, you can dial up the thing. It will turn the water to 134 and hold it at that temperature. And then when you pull it out of the bag, it hasn't let any of the juice. The juice can escape, right? So it's just very juicy and tender. Whoa. And you'll see a lot of restaurants have done that now because it's such an easy way to cook a steak and not jack it up.
Wow. Do people do that with meats like lamb as well? I feel like I've maybe heard of such things. There's a machine for it, right? There's a machine to do it too?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about with the stick that gets things going?
There's machines, and then there's also like little like wands that you just sort of poke in a big pot, and it'll like circulate the water through a heater and keep the pot. So you don't actually have the pot on a burner. It just kind of runs through and does that. But yeah, man, people sous vide lamb, chicken. You can do anything, and you can also sous vide vegetables. And I had this like thing years ago. It was like a Kickstarter called the Mellow, and I was so fired up about this thing. It was like going to be like the Keurig sous vide machine, and the idea, it was just brilliant. Like you put this thing on your counter and you filled it with water, and if you wanted to have a steak dinner tomorrow night at 6 p.m. You would go in and you would say steak tomorrow night at 6 p.m. and then you would take the steaks in the bag, put it in the water, and then it would chill the water to like refrigerator temperature and keep it floating there, not spoiling, until it became time to start cooking it because it wanted to be done at 6, and then it would cook it. And so you would just like arrive home and it would be, so it was like another level of crock pot thing. Like you could literally do it 2 days before, and then it would eventually like start cooking itself when it was time. And it worked flawlessly one time. And then that was the end of it, right? And this son of a bitch, I sent the thing back and it broke, and then they had all these things like, oh, just poach some eggs in there, just put some eggs. The freaking egg got all in the bottom, and then they sent me another one, and then they went out of business. And I have a sordid past with Kickstarter. I was a guy that did that, and then I also, if you've ever seen the Coolest Cooler, which is one of the greatest Kickstarters of all time, the biggest flame outs ever, I actually had a Coolest Cooler, which was like this epic like cooler, and then the guy, it was one of the biggest Kickstarters of all time. He's trying to raise like 150 grand or something like that. I think there's a documentary on him. He's trying to raise 150 grand to make this incredible cooler that had a radio and lights and a blender that was built into it. And it was amazing. And he was trying to raise 150 grand, and he didn't cap it. And he made such a good video about it that he ended up selling like $10 million worth of them. But the problem was he priced it wrong. And so he lost $80 on every one. And so he had this massive business problem where he had this huge influx of orders, and he lost money on every one of them. And the only reason I got one was he admitted to that to everybody on the Kickstarter, sent out an email and said, look, if you're willing to spend $90, which is how much I would lose on that, if you'll send the $90 in, I will get yours to you. You'll jump to the front of the line, which I don't know. Was that ethical? I don't know. But I said, I'm like that idiot at the craps table. Like I'm all in, I threw another $90 in, and I got my Coolest Cooler, and it really was badass. Like I had a lot of fun with it. I would take it out places, but that guy promptly went out of business because most people did not come to his rescue, and there was like a class action lawsuit, and I think there was a documentary about it. And I feel bad for the guy because it was an incredible idea, extraordinarily well executed, and one little detail that he missed, which was pricing that out all the way and not capping his Kickstarter, sunk him. That's one of the rare versions of you seeing somebody sold too well and it put them out of business, right? Because they didn't have one of their other details right.
Oh my goodness, that breaks my heart because it's like you're saying, it's like one detail. He was like one number away from making a killing, and man.
Yep.
And I can feel the pain in your voice from that first product too. I feel like you really went through something there. Jeez.
He had a great one. Yeah, I mean, Kickstarter's great, but you just never know what you're going to get. I've picked some losers on Kickstarter, which I don't really back products like that anymore because I've picked some losers.
Well, it's like, I mean, to Kickstarter's credit, it's always really fascinating ideas. But from what I've found, and even in the short stories you've shared, it's like people with great ideas that don't have the experience of executing on the back end. So it becomes really hard once they do get funded because it's like, oh, this is a great idea. Now I have to actually make it. Oh, man. Where do I go from here?
Yep. It's totally right. I've had a saying I've said many times on the show, like if you can go further in your career with a bad idea that's brilliantly executed than you can with a great idea that's poorly executed. And a great example of that is, I had what I still say was an objectively great idea. Prior to I started a company called Proctor U. Prior to Proctor U, my buddies and I, the same guys that created Proctor U, or some of the same guys that were in the beginning, were working on something called Realtor Clicks, and it was essentially Zillow before there was a Zillow. And we built this thing, and it was a great idea, right? It made sense, but we just didn't execute it well. We didn't have the connections. We didn't understand the market. And it flopped, right? And great idea, poor execution equals failure. Conversely, like if you've ever seen the guy, I forget the guy's name, that started the pet rock, right? Or had back in the 70s, he literally sold a rock with a face on it and gave it a name and sold at least $1 million worth of that. And that was when $1 million was worth a lot more than it is today.
Wow.
And that's an objectively stupid idea, right? But the guy clearly understood marketing and executed it brilliantly and did very well. And so it's just, even dumb ideas when executed well can make some kind of an impact. I think we're going in for the final check here.
Oh, yeah, those look nice.
Oh, we're ready. These bad boys are ready.
Haters can't say anything about this. They cannot.
You hear that
see
hissing?
it. That's the proof.
The sizzling. Ooh. That we've got the. Ooh, yeah. Ooh. Look at that, man. So now here we got a great thing. We've only got the finest paper plate that I'm throwing this on right now because that's all I could grab before the show started. The world's finest paper plates.
Hey, that's how you know you're grilling.
And guess what my kids are having for dinner? This is the same one that keeps trying to fumble on me.
Slippery little guy.
I love it. If you're not watching this on Facebook or YouTube, you're missing out. This is the part of the podcast that's meant for video.
It is.
All right, folks. Well, Nick, it was a blast having you here. I definitely want to have you back when Riverside FM is behaving and we can chat a little bit more. Everybody go check out the Nickolas Natali show. Natali. And where can they find that epic podcast?
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And that's where you can find it, the Nickolas Natali show. Listen to this episode and then go check it out and then come back to this one and then go check out another. Just go back and forth. I think that's the best recipe I can offer.
I love it. Folks, if you found anything valuable in this episode, God bless you, because it was a shit show. But if you did, feel free to tell somebody, tell your friends. Please go subscribe. Please, find us on YouTube. Find us on TikTok. 22,000 strongs. Not a gritty in sight, right? And would love to have more people joining us in our community there. And we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Slow Smoke Business Show.